Asset intelligence is so essential to financial services because it's so heavily regulated. We're often looking at systems that are calculating interest, moving money around, paying bills, doing all of these wonderful things, and it's really important to answer the question, do we have it all? Making sure that you have a solid foundation and you know what you're protecting is essential to any IT organization, any IT program, and any security program. If you don't have it, you're going to be blind.
Why is it that so many financial services organizations depend on Sevco?
Sevco is important to the financial services because IT organization teams will look at that same asset in a different way. You've got infrastructure teams that look at it differently than application teams that are developing source code. You have data teams that are flowing data to and from, which will look at it differently than, say, the networking teams. And so they'll look at the same thing but have a different name for it. And you run into this name game. Sevco eliminates all of that. Sevco comes in and plugs into their source of truth to develop a common language. So that way, you don't run into the name game, you don't have to manually reconcile, and it's always kept up to date.
What are some of the negative ramifications of a financial organization not having an asset intelligence strategy?
It's not the asset that you can see, it's the asset you can't see that typically gets you in trouble. Typically, it's a manual process to go through, do an export, do VLOOKUPs, have the teams go through and understand, hey, are we seeing an uptick in our public cloud? Are we actually moving according to our end-of-life projects? Are we end of support for a fleet and we're going to have some concerns with patching? All of those things are able to be informed conversations now with a solution like Sevco. What's unique about Sevco's approach to asset intelligence is the calculation of risk and also the way that you handle derelict assets. It's really easy to understand those assets that really haven't been touched in some time and really helping to prioritize and remove a lot of the friction between the security and IT organization. And so what you really care about if you're working either in an IT organization or closely with, like most our CISOs are, is you're able to go through and prioritize work. And you're able to go through and understand what holds the most risk. And it's not typically something that's either in a perimeter or otherwise, it could be something that is often forgotten, something that's derelict. And so Sevco has a very unique approach to helping prioritize, understand what your end of life and your end of support assets look like. My favorite Sevco feature really comes down to the simplicity and the elegance of the UI. There's a really beautiful Venn diagram. Without really having to go deep into the technical features of Sevco, you understand what is working, what is in lockstep, and what is on the perimeter. And so it's very easy to go and focus attention if you see something that is inside of your vulnerability management source of truth, but not necessarily in your CMDB or not necessarily reporting into your Active Directory. And so what's really important is that you can inform that conversation. There's an impact on dollars. Some of the foundational use cases for Sevco really come in the form of an informed conversation with the CFO. You can pay down risk. Ultimately, you're delegated a budget. You're protecting assets. Assets will constantly change, whether through merger, through acquisition, through divestiture. And you need to understand the risks that you're carrying, and you need to have that conversation with your CFO.